So there's one deaf boy. He was a nice, real friendly guy. He was a fifth grader who actually went to middle school. But he hated his middle school because all the students there and even some of the teachers would constantly pick on him all the time. They would tell him things like, you can't drive and you can't fly a plane because you're deaf. He just felt very oppressed. And he wished that he was hearing just like everybody else. Then they would stop picking on him. But he just had to accept it because he was deaf. He only had one friend. And his friend was a boy, and he was a big nerd. He was a nice guy, but wow, was he a nerd. Really into science, into computer video games. He would always be talking about science things, and an interpreter would have to interpret it, but I didn't get it. But the boy didn't get it. He was the only friend in the world that he had. Early one morning, they were taking the bus to school, and the deaf boy was looking out the window, watching the trees go by, just imagining what it would be like to become the first deaf pilot. And then his daydream was interrupted by his nerdy friend. He's like, oh man, I can't handle his science stuff today. But he kept being persistent. So he looked and he had this kind of chemical concoction, and he wondered what it was. So he smelled it, and it smelled terrible. He said, oh, take it back. No, you should drink it. Go ahead, drink it. Well, I guess I'll drink it. We're young, do crazy things. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, he kept coughing, and it was awful. You never tasted anything like that before. Oh, a little more. With a mischievous laugh, he gave him a thumbs up, the nerdy friend. The deaf boy noticed that there was kind of a weird sensation in his body. Well, the bus came to a stop, and the deaf boy ran into his interpreter, and the interpreter signed to him, good morning, and he said, good morning to her. And she told him that, did you remember about the game in the gym? Oh yeah, that's right, there's a dodgeball game today, said the deaf boy. So I went into the gym, and they're starting to play the game, and they would always single him out, and they would constantly single him out for dodgeball, and he would get hit a lot. So I can't wait for this to be over. I just want to get out of here. I'm so mad. I just want to go change and get out of here. So finally he was able to go, and he went to his locker and got his books and put his things in his backpack and went on to English class. He hated going to English class. Why? Because the professor was so stuck up, would look down on everyone. He was just so judgmental. And he ran into him, and he said, one of the biggest reasons why he was judgmental is because he hated ASL. He thought it was a second-rate language because English would come first. And he told him, if you come into my classroom, then you have to use English, because ASL there's nothing to ASL. English is more important. Well, the deaf boy brushed that off and tried to enter into the class. And then this bully named Roy, who was always picking on him, always teasing him, because thought he was privileged. He even had everything in the world. He even got an ATV. I wanted one of those things. And he was even two-faced. He would pretend like he'd be nice, but then he would always come back and be abusive and be a bully. And that's the reason I hated Roy. Deaf boy hated Roy. He was always getting in his face and teasing him because he was deaf. And the interpreter, you could tell, hated to interpret for Roy. She would get angry herself, but he just tried to brush it off and say, I'm going into English class, just forget it. And Roy would be like, oh, you're going to go into English class, huh? You can't come in because you're deaf. Remember, you have to use English. You can't use ASL. Are you telling me I can't go into English class because I'm deaf? He's like, yep, that's right. And the deaf boy got so mad, he threw off his backpack and threw it into the corner, and surprising the interpreter. Well, Roy left laughing. Ha, look at the little pathetic deaf boy getting mad, and he walked away. As he walked away, the interpreter watched him leave, and as he turned back around, the deaf boy began to transform in some way, and his chest became really muscular, his biceps grew out, his legs became completely more big than what they were, and his feet even grew past where his shoes were. His skin even turned green, and he turned into something different. And the interpreter was so scared watching this transformation happen, and Roy walking away didn't notice what was going on, and he finally turned around and to see this huge gargantuan Hulk stand before him. He's screaming and telling him, I'm sorry. So I see you, said the deaf Hulk, and he picked up Roy from his waist and said, "You're mad, you oppress deaf people, you." And the deaf Hulk picked him up, and Roy couldn't get away, and the deaf Hulk slammed Roy against the lockers again and again. Roy, I'm sorry, I can't help it, I'm sorry, let me go. And he said, finally the deaf Hulk threw Roy down the hallway, and he bounced around like a ragdoll before finally hitting his head and getting knocked out. The deaf Hulk angrily looked around and busted out of the school wall completely and looked around and noticed that there was a huge building near the school that was really tall. And so the deaf Hulk grew to about the same size as that building. At the same time, the English professor that was stuck up came out and tried to scold him somehow by talking, and the deaf Hulk says, "I don't understand your speech. I don't understand. You think I'm stupid because me deaf. You think you better because you speak English. I see your fancy car over there. Watch this," said the deaf Hulk. And he rampaged over to the English teacher's car and smashed it to bits. And little pieces of it went flying everywhere. "Ha ha ha," said the deaf Hulk. The English teacher screamed, "Oh no!" Fell to his knees, weeping for his car. "No!" "Ha ha ha," laughed the deaf Hulk. And then the deaf Hulk looked all around, and policemen started showing up everywhere in their cars, and they even had a helicopter in the sky, more than one. It was a loud scene, but the deaf Hulk said, "Me no hear. You want to hear something loud? Listen to this." And he yelled a loud roar, and all the police officers and the cars and their windows shattered, and the helicopter's windows shattered, and they had trouble controlling the helicopters themselves, and they couldn't barely hold on to their guns, keeping their aim. They all got into the cars and immediately began a retreat until there was none of them left. "Ha ha! Now I hope you all become deaf like me. You all wish you were deaf like me," roared the deaf Hulk. "Deaf strong!" And at the same time, that last statement, he began to shrink back to normal size. And he became the deaf boy again, and he looked around, and he noticed there's all this smoke coming from this smashed car, and the English teacher cradling his poor destroyed car, or what was left of it. And then the deaf boy occurred to him, "Oh, I'm late for math. I need to hurry up and get to math class." So he ran back into school as fast as he could through the hallway and got into the classroom and took his seat. He looked at his nerdy friend, and his nerdy friend had the same mischievous laugh and gave him 2 thumbs up with laughing at the joy. And he said, "Wow, you're a genius. I can't believe you created such a great thing that made me become a Hulk." And then Roy appeared in the classroom and freaked out. He's like, "Oh my gosh," he was so afraid of the deaf boy. And so much so he ran into the corner, and Roy was like, keep him away from me, keep him away from me." The math teacher was like, "Roy, what's wrong with you?" He said, "That deaf boy took me and beat me up and threw me in the corner." And Roy was like, "Okay." Looked at the deaf boy, and the deaf boy said, I think he's a little bit crazy. And so the teacher looked at Roy and dismissed him and went back to teaching. From then on, the deaf boy and his nerdy friend were the best of friends.